Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of APinballPodcast. I have Tom Graf with me once again from the Pinball Network in Foxcities, and we're going to be going over what we've seen so far out of Avengers Infinity Quest. I know everybody's been talking about it a lot. It's the talk of the town, and it should be because it looks like such a great damn game, and we're going to spend this podcast just kind of going over what we see and what we think about it. Sound good, Tom?
Sounds awesome.
All right, so do you have
Can't wait
one?
to play this damn game.
I was about to ask you, do you have one on order?
I do. I was able to secure an LE as soon as I saw the video.
There you go. And I have an LE also.
Yes.
So with both of us getting an LE, you guys know already, you're going to be listening to this. We're already all in.
Yep.
So, I mean, there might be a couple of things to criticize here and there, but there's not much. There's really not much.
I haven't bought an LE in a long time. So this is, I have a feeling this is going to be something special.
Yeah, and we were talking about that a little bit off camera or off podcast or off audio, whatever you want to call it. We were talking about the various shots and everything. And what I found so fascinating to zero in on was that ramp that can be hit with all three flippers.
The banana ramp.
Yeah, and it's just, and
Also
the funny
known as
part
the
of
gauntlet ramp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the gauntlet. Yeah. Well, banana ramp. Everybody's going to call it that now. Elwin's going to kill you now. Congratulations. Lock your door.
I think Gary Stern called it that.
Did he?
The rumor. So.
Well, what I find fascinating about this ramp is the fact when you really look at it, if you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, feel free to bring up the playfield, just the whole playfield of the LE. And that's what we're kind of using as reference right now. And looking at this ramp, I've noticed that just the way that it's bowed out, it really allows you to hit it from all types of different angles. And I don't see this ramp having any rejects, really. It's going to be very difficult, I think, seeing this for there to be rejects. At least that's what my instinct is telling me. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to hit it from the upper flipper and the left flipper. It looks like pretty easily, and then it looks very backhandable from the right flipper. So
yeah, and I'm excited about that, and probably most likely from a trap. I'm not sure if that can be backhanded on the fly. It might be able to, just because of the way it's bowed.
We're gonna try it right during the tournament. You know it.
You can thread that needle. That's awesome. But another point about that ramp too, and I'll mention this on my my other video that I have coming out. That's just a full overview of the playfield. Is I noticed that when I played the video in 0.25 speed, because I'm that obsessed over finding shots and geometry, I noticed that a forehand shot from the left grazed off that post leading to the Captain Marvel ramp, and yet it still had enough juice because of the way that that gauntlet ramp or the banana ramp is designed. It still had enough to get up there with speed. That was a nuance that I really did like.
Yeah. It looks amazing. Drool is coming out of my mouth right now. I can't even speak.
Well,
it looks so awesome.
There's so much going on about it, and especially if I look at this from a design, what catches my eyes immediately is that I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99% sure that that disc and the Captain Marvel ramp were basically two things that are the foundational pieces to this design.
Okay.
Because if you really look at it, like, let's just take the disc, for instance, Tom. If you really look at it and consider this disc, which is, for people that haven't seen it for whatever reason, though I think everybody listening to this has probably seen it by now, it works very similar to the Circus Voltaire disc or whatever that's called, to where, you know, it'll stand up eventually and you can hit the ball inside to get to a subway. But what I noticed that I really do like about this is just because of the way the shots are built around it, my instinct is telling me that this disc is just, it's a major foundational point to this whole design, because the shots around it complement it so much. When we're talking about the target right behind it, we're talking about the way that the pops work with that through shot going around to be able to hit the spinner from a different angle. We're talking about the way that the upper flipper is, the inset, to where the ball can travel perfectly, you know, right next to that disc into the Avengers Tower. And then also the fact that you can hit that disc legitimately inside from the upper flipper as well. You can hold it up and just hit it right in there. So I really think that that's a foundational piece to this design.
Agreed. Yeah, and the cool thing about the spinner is, as you can see, if you're looking at the playfield, you can spin it clockwise and you can spin it counterclockwise. And obviously, there's going to be something in the game, whether it's starting modes or the multi-ball, where you're going to have to spin it a certain way to either unlock or start a mode possibly, or maybe lift that portal up. So it's going to be interesting to find out exactly, as we were talking about this before, we don't really see anything that says mode start on the game, right?
No, no, we don't. And I've looked around, I've tried to figure that part out, and I'm honestly not quite sure. I've seen some inserts, especially focusing in again on the Doctor Strange disc area, that I think that there's an area around there that says Hawkeye Challenge. And my guess is that itself might be a mini mode to where that's what causes that little post to pop up, to where you're basically having to hit the ramp over and over and over again, the boat ramp, banana ramp, gauntlet ramp, whatever we want to call it, with that upper flipper, to where then it can just hit back and reset. I kind of wonder if that might be a mini mode up there. But yeah, looking around the playfield in general, I'm not quite sure yet how those modes will actually work. It doesn't seem like that there's anything, I mean, it could be an Iron Maiden thing that maybe you just got to hit so many shots to spell out something to light a mode. That could be it. But I know obviously they got the collect gem shot at the Infinity Gauntlet as well.
Okay.
So I'm kind of wondering if that might work similar to Soul Shard. Maybe you finish a mode that is exclusive to that particular gem, and then your final shot is that collect gem shot up top that goes past the gauntlet. Maybe at that point, maybe that's when that post comes up. You collect the gem and it goes down, and then you have that quick breathing point because then the LCD lights up, lights go nuts. That could be it right there as well.
I find it ironic that Doctor Strange is the focal point of the topper, on for the topper of the game. So I'm kind of wondering if possibly spelling his Strange on the playfield is going to be a big part of the game. I
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it definitely has to do with one of the multi balls. I think the question is, and I've heard some people ask me this question, will it be similar to the way the Jurassic Park topper was, to where you had to spell out letters? Like they were wondering that, is there like some type of DLC built into the topper? And, I could kind of see that link. I'm not sure if it's there or not. I mean, we'll find out pretty quick, but yeah,
right.
this game is definitely centralized around Doctor Strange, which is interesting. It really is, just because, like you said, Doctor Strange is on the topper, and Doctor Strange, that shot, the disc, I'm 100% positive at this point. Now we talked it out. That was a major focal point to the foundation of this build. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, there's a lot of nuance in that area. The fact that you have something lifting up like a portal, which is something that Doctor Strange would do. The fact that you have what looks like a little light above it, to where you have your add a ball, you have your spot Iron Man shot, and I think it might even be an extra ball on that target as well, that it kind of gives you an idea that that's the sanctum. And Tom, there's another spot in there. I don't know if you noticed this is a comic book fan coming out on me here. And I'm so damn happy that Zombie Yeti did this. An awesome nuance, if you really look at the upper flipper area, right, you'll notice on the playfield they got cars on a street, right?
Yes.
So the sanctum legitimately is setting on the correct street corner that it would set, like in the comics. Like that's where it sets there, on a corner of a street. And that's exactly what it does. So I really like that little nuance, to where you legitimately feel like then, like World Under Glass, this is the sanctum area. I really do like that.
Yeah. Another place possibly for starting modes could be that that shot to the arc reactor. I know it looks like it's mainly for the multi-ball, but Um, yeah. Oh, who knows at this point? But I'd like to know what all the power ups do, and I mean, there's definitely a lot going on here. It looks like, but uh, I'm excited to play it. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I feel you there. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
then, in terms of what we're seeing on the playfield. And I'll get this out of the way right now. One nuance that I really do like is the fact that the font, if you're a comic book fan, you'll realize pretty quick the font matches up
Yes.
classically with a lot of the major storylines in the comics itself. Like the Thanos font matches up, the Thor font matches up, Doctor Strange matches up, Iron Man match, like it all, the Avengers matches up. So when you start really digging into the lore, they've really paid a lot of respect to that. And for me, as a fan of not only just pinball, but of comics in general, like I honestly feel like they have totally, like Zombie Yeti has knocked this out of the freaking park.
His
I mean,
artwork is amazing.
yeah, yeah,
It's just amazing.
and to be able to pull from that many different sources, and you use that many different sources of inspiration, because you can tell it's there just by the font alone. It matches up with a lot of it. I mean, that is amazing. Like the artwork, bar none, it's some of the most amazing stuff I've ever seen. It's, I mean, I am a huge Marvel fan, so therefore this is legitimately my favorite art on a pinball machine of all time. Like I would seriously want to buy a playfield and put it up on the wall. I'm usually not that type of guy, but I'm willing to be that type of guy
Maybe
now.
exception.
Yeah. I mean, it's just awesome. So, but looking through all that, then you were mentioning the power ups, right? My
Yeah.
theory is that those power ups could possibly mean that your character, like, so I want to think that possibly that might mean that you play as a certain character, and you might not have to pick that character starting out, but I think the modes might be based on you using a character to retrieve that particular stone.
Sure.
That could be it, to where the Avengers aren't necessarily all assembled yet because they have to go in all different directions anyways. I keep saying stone. In this game, it's the gem, which they're paying homage, or whatever you want to call it, to the old school comics. Yeah, because it all started out, I'll get off track a little bit, but let's get everybody caught up. The soul gems, that's what they were called at the beginning. They weren't given names but the soul gems. And then eventually it became the soul, like the rest of the gems, the infinity gems eventually, and then it became the stone. So I really do like that. If you look in the middle of the playfield, you see Battle Thanos, you see Soul Gem and Black Order. So that leads me to believe that Soul Gem is definitely a major part of this, which is a direct pull again from the comics. And we'll touch base on that mode here pretty quick as well. But seeing the power-ups, I think off the top of my head that either means that you can play as that particular hero, and maybe that might give you, when you hit so many shots, maybe that might light it up to give you an actual power-up that could be, a 2x shot with it. It could be that the power-up is simply a jackpot. I mean, it could be that as well. I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do with that. There's no telling. I mean, what do you think it could be?
It's hard to say what's going in the mind of Keith Owen, but maybe you got to collect. Maybe the more Avengers you collect, and go after a gem or something. Um, it increases your score. It's hard to say because obviously collecting the gem is a focus, and then the main Avengers are a focus. Um, I'm trying to see here. So I'm looking at the 6 inserts on the bottom here. You got Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, looks like Black Widow, I think.
Right.
Um, Thor, and then Black Panther, and they all have power-ups. So I wonder if those are related somehow. Um,
I
and then
mean, it could be one of those things to where maybe the power up just means you got halfway through the mode, kind of like Guardians was. And then when you get to the end of the mode, maybe it's collect a gem. It could be that. Then one of those mini wizard modes could be if you got halfway through all the modes, even if you haven't collected anything. I mean, because that's kind of the way that they did with, or that Elwyn did with Maiden, also, to where you could still get to a mini wizard mode just by playing the modes and not necessarily finishing the modes. So I could see that being something that he would do with this game as well.
So what is the Eye of Agamotto? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. So that's basically from the comics. That's just a mystical item that Doctor Strange uses. So if
Okay.
you've watched it in the movies, MCU, it's not actually an Infinity Gem or anything like that. It comes from another sorcerer that, like, without going too deep into it, he was long thought dead. His name was Agamotto, and they basically use this to be able to do like interdimensional travel. It's just like this huge thing to where it's very powerful. And then come to find out, plot twist, Agamotto wasn't actually dead. And yeah, it was this whole ordeal. And yeah,
Spoiler alert.
yeah, spoiler alert for all you nerds out there like me that are going to go through all this stuff. But I mean, I don't know. I notice though that it has an insert for that. So it makes me wonder, will they actually have that character on here? He may not be on the playfield, but maybe that's like another little mode that Doctor Strange has to go find it or something.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't think that they would put that on the playfield as an insert. And you'll notice it's actually right under the N on Doctor Strange or on Strange on the playfield. And so I don't think that they would have that insert there if it didn't mean something. So I'm curious to know how that plays. Maybe that might be some type of mode.
Well, and I'm like you were saying, the Hawkeye doesn't, that could be some kind of added mode in there. And I
Sharpshooting
noticed,
mode.
right, and I noticed Captain Marvel, the ramp there doesn't have any type of insert related to her.
Right.
So it's just there's an arrow and it looks like some kind of gem or ball insert below it. So obviously she's gonna play some part in the game, and not related to the 6 Avengers on the playfield there.
Yeah, and I can't quite make out what that is inside those inserts and those diamond inserts, but if you notice, the diamonds are actually, or I'm calling them diamonds, just the diamond inserts,
Yeah,
are
yeah.
littered throughout the game. Like there's one right above Hulk, there's one above Captain America, there's one below Black Widow on that center ramp, one by Captain Marvel, and then one on the Black Panther shot.
There's one pointed to the drop targets too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, one right by Bruce Banner as well.
Yes. Yep.
So I'm curious to see how that plays in too, because that's totally separate than the little triangle inserts that they also have on Hulk, Arc Reactor, the middle. Actually, they have the triangles on pretty much everything, don't they?
Yeah.
Now I'm looking. Yeah. So, I mean, that's curious because those inserts show up on Captain America, Black Widow, the Infinity Gauntlet, the Inner Orbit, the Captain Marvel shot, and the Black Panther shot as well. That's curious. I mean, it's got to play something into it because what's also interesting on it is there's at the mystery scoop, right?
Yeah.
You can change the gems too. There's an insert for that as well.
Okay.
So
I'm wondering if those diamond inserts are the gems, and they're probably RGB lights that change color depending on what gem you have.
It
at that
it could be. If I had to run a guess, and this is assuming that they just went balls to the wall on this, I would have to think that each gem directly affects how your mode plays out. That maybe you can still play a mode, but the gems themselves, whatever gem you have active during a mode, gives you some type of buff, or maybe even a nerf if Thanos has it. I could see that being something. So that's an extra layer that you're going to play your modes regardless, but depending on what gem you bring into that mode, that might alter it as they do in the comics. What do you think about
How many
that?
people are going to watch the Jack Danger stream? Like a
I
million?
think a lot. I think a lot.
Well,
So to be
on the Marvel channel.
well, to be fair, Marvel doesn't really have a huge following on Twitch.
Sure.
They really don't. So I would have personally, I don't like that they're showing it on Twitch. I would have much rather them see it put it on their YouTube, because on their YouTube, millions, like they have a huge following, much larger on. Now I'm not saying they'll obviously get a couple of thousand people watching, and they're going to be on front page, which will give, eyeballs there, which I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm glad that Stern is sending people over, or however they're doing it, remotely or whatever. So hopefully Jack does well on that and the team does well on that, because you really want to get this pin out to everybody. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they're doing that on Twitch, just because their YouTube would draw so many more eyeballs.
Ooh.
So that's kind of a curious thing. But that being said, there could be a reason for that, because technically Jack would not be able to do a stream on YouTube since he's a partner on Twitch. He wouldn't be able to play a game on YouTube, because that would directly go against his terms of service as a partner. And the only reason why I know that for a fact, because I have the same exact contract. The only way that you can go live on YouTube is if you're just chatting. Like right now, if you and me are doing this, I'd be fine. If I got up and I'm playing a game and I'm streaming that, not so much. Wouldn't be fine.
And that's just because you're a partner. If you were an affiliate, you could do it, correct?
Yeah, fair game. So I'm really surprised that they are not showing that.
So I was looking at the Playfield and I just noticed something I hadn't noticed before. There is a rollover that's a skill shot.
Oh yeah, right up the middle. Yep.
Yeah. I did not notice that before. So
yep. And for those scoring at home, it's between the middle ramp and the Infinity Gauntlet ramp. If you look there, it's chilling right there. So yeah, it's just like a short plunge. You go into there. Now what happens behind there, I don't know. I don't know if the ball
like
gets
right into the pops.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but that's just, to me, that's kind of an odd spot for it to go to. I mean, typically your skill shots will go into the pops, but what I'm looking at is just the way that could feed back down.
Yep.
That it's kind of a little bit of an odd spot. I'm curious to see where exactly that would hang up at, but at the same time though, you notice that there's a gate right there too. So I'm wondering, if you try to short plunge it and you don't get past that gate, is there an opening right there to where it'll still fall down, or will it come all the way back to the shooter lane? You kind of see where I'm talking about?
Yep, I see it.
But I don't know how that'll work. What I do know is that area is pretty much genius as well. And I mean, we can kind of touch base, circling back.
Keep going. We're talking.
Yeah. Circling back, I mean, especially, when we talk about the wire forms and all that too, you can definitely tell the right ramp with the Captain Marvel that is not in the Pro, right? You could tell this is
loops back. There's
right
a spinner there, and it loops back too.
Yeah. No doubt in my mind that's a foundational piece as well, because the other wire forms work around that as well. Yeah. And there's two separate areas dealing with the scoop vuck going back and returning to the right flipper, and then also the Infinity Gauntlet ramp going through the Captain Marvel ramp. I mean, it almost looks like a roller coaster, but they also too, I like how they have that little plastic protector going around the Captain Marvel too, to prevent air balls and all that. They got on that quick. I'm glad to see that. So I'm not expecting many air balls or even balls to get hung up there. That looks like that could be smooth. The only area that I'm kind of concerned about, that I'm wondering, will this work the way it's intended, is the Avengers Tower. That magnet going up top, because we know that Stern has struggled in the past, especially with Stranger Things and just magnets of, doing what that's supposed to do. It looks cool on the videos, and I'm sure it'll be badass if it works properly. I'm hoping that it will, because obviously if that doesn't work right, then that nullifies not only an entire area, it nullifies a multi-ball as well. So I think that's a very important mech to the game as well.
Yeah. Where is so you have right next to the gauntlet shot, you have the kind of the, I guess I'd call it an inner loop from the upper flipper. Where is that going? Is that going directly back into the pops, or is that going up the like
That
the skill shot ramp?
that goes back up the ramp. Yep. Back
Okay.
up, and then it goes back to your
Was
O. Yep, your right flipper.
okay.
So what makes it really interesting is the fact that there's actually two separate areas on the right end lane in which a shot can return. I honestly don't remember a pin that's done that before. I mean, it might have been done, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I seriously can't think of another pin in which it has two separate returns in the same end lane. Because what's interesting is one will definitely go over the switch in the end lane, but the one from the Vuck, the mystery shot, it won't. But what I really
Oh
love
yeah.
about yeah, and I cannot remember any other game that had two separate returns to the same end lane for a flipper. When people are talking about innovation, I mean, there's plenty here. That right there, that's
Good
different.
point.
That's
I
different.
didn't even realize that. I didn't look that closely into it. That's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah. Well, it
And
makes it to where
you don't get that on the pro model, obviously, because you don't have that Captain Marvel ramp.
correct, correct. And so, I mean, that's pretty cool as well. That you can basically you you could basically do just different things. Then, I mean, that alters the way that you can approach your pin. That alters the way you can sequence your shots. That
Yep.
alters your timing as well because the ball is dropping in a totally different spot. And it's to me that's really outstanding, and I haven't really heard too many people talk about that, but that's a little nuance that I can definitely appreciate, and that's kind of how you know that something like that definitely the disc and the Captain Marvel thing, I firmly believe those are foundational pieces to his entire design.
Yeah, people that are complaining that the MSRP went up $100. There are one, two, three, four. Was there five wire forms on this game? And what, five metal ramps if you count the Iron Man
Yeah,
and the skill shot.
at the very least there's 4.5 ramps on this game.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I was talking about on a podcast the other day. I'm like, if you compare this to all other pins, I mean, it's not close. It's just one of those deals that he's just head and shoulders above people, and it's definitely an outstanding pin. So I'm
yeah.
trying to look through it
Sub-
as well.
Subway.
Yeah, the subway works as well. I mean, does when we talk about innovation too, because I've seen people discussing on forums and on Facebook pages and everything. They're wanting to know, okay, when's the next big innovation? When's this? When's that? And there's a lot of people that want to see mechs as innovation, and I'm a firm believer that I personally think the way pinball is today, in terms of all the wires and everything, anything that has been done mech wise has already been done. Like, I don't think anything else mech wise can be invented based off what we have today. The only new mech feature that I can think of that would be totally revolutionary is if they were able to make things go wireless on the playfield. That would allow for a certain modularity during a game. Like, say your upper playfield could totally just flip, where now you're up, a flipper switches to the other side and your targets can switch to the other side. Like, it rotates around and it changes the geometry. I could see that being something in the future, but that requires a different underbelly to the game. So
Bill of materials just went way up.
yeah, exactly, and we'll get on that here in just a few. That's hilarious. But yeah, judging this though, if you are a fan of pinball and you appreciate shots, you will see the innovation just based off the shots. The fact that we have a upper flipper that can be repeated over and over and over again on a ramp. I don't think I've seen that before. The fact that there's a ramp that can be hit from 3 separate flippers, haven't seen that before. The fact that there's 2 separate returns to a flipper. If that's been done before, I can't think of it off the top of my head when the last time that even happened. So that's interesting as well. I mean, there's a lot going on, and that's just talking about just shot geometry and the ball returning back to you. And what's magnificent about this particular layout and design, all these shots are really, really designed to return back to your flippers. That's what I like. It's aimed for you to play with control, but it gives you control as well. It rewards you for hitting those shots because you're going to get a ball back to the flipper. And that's so important. And that was one of my critiques of Raza that really bugged me, that even if you hit the ramp, right, the return wasn't even into the in lane. It just dropped it right at the sling. And I'm like, that's kind of a kick in the nuts right there. But this gives you control. There's different areas that you can hit it in, you can park it at, and it'll give it right back to you at the flipper. Like you hit the mystery scoop. Where's it coming back to? A flipper.
Right to your flipper, yep.
Right. You hit the ramp to start something, with your upper flipper or anything. It gives you that post real quick. Gives you control. It's everything just flows back and returns really well, and I really like that. I think that's a great nuance to this game.
I got to do a timeout here, Travis. I got to order lunch or my wife's going to kill me.
Well, that's all right. I think we've done about all we could do. Okay. We reached the 30-minute thing. So Tom's going to go get lunch for his wife, and I'm going to wrap up the podcast because I need to get lunch as well. But thank you guys so much for listening. Tom, order lunch for your wife so you don't have to sleep on the couch.
and my kids and myself. But
well, yeah.
And the dog. No.
Well, you're last. Just do what you need to do so you can get your LE in.
That's right.
Tom. Thank you so much for joining, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
Travis. Thanks.